In this video, we're going to look at void methods and see an example of a void method, and then we're going to look at the same example using a value returning method. So let's start out with this test code right here. It's public static void, so its return type is void, and that means it's not going to return any information. It's just going to perform some task. Okay, it's called print grade, and when the calling code calls print grade with a double, it's going to be stored in this variable called score, and then we're going to do some tests on score to determine what we're going to print out. So if the score is going to be greater than 90, greater than or equal to 90, the system will print out an A. If it's greater than or equal to 80, the system will print out a B. And notice it's doing output to the console. It's not returning any information back here to the code that called it. So when we run this, the first thing that's going to happen is it's going to print out the grade is in a space. And notice that's print, not print line. And then it's going to call the print grade method and pass the double value 78.5. That 78.5 gets passed into this parameter called score. And then we'll test score. If the score is greater than 90, it's going to print an A. Since it was 78.5, that's not going to happen. It's not greater than 80, so that's not going to happen. It is greater than or equal to 70, so the system will print out a C. So we'll say the grade is C, and if we look down here where it's already ran, it says the grade is C. The second thing is it prints out the grade is, and this time it does it with 59.5, which is not greater than 90, 80, 70, or 60. So it's going to do the else down here, and it's going to print out the F. So we get the grade is F. Okay, so it returns no information back to the code that called it. It just does the task that it was set out to do. Now let's compare that to the same program written with a value returning method. So in this case, we have the same method, or I don't remember if it's the same. Yeah, that was print grade. This one is called get grade because it doesn't actually print anything. It returns values to us. And in this case, the value it returns is going to be a character. So we're going to pass it a score that has to be a double. It's going to go through to test score to see if it's greater than 90, 80, and in each case, it's going to return a value to the code that called it. So here's an example. System out print, the grade is, and then we're calling that method get grade 78.5. So 78.5 comes into score. We test it. Score is not greater than 90. Score is not greater than 80. Score is greater than 70. So it returns the character C back here to the code that called it and ends up saying the grade is C because it substitutes the C in the result back from get grade and concatenates it onto the grade is. And we can see that down here, the grade is C. Likewise, we do a new line and print the grade is again. And this time we concatenate on and we call get grade 59.5. It runs through here, hits the else, returns an F, and back to the place where it was called. It substitutes the F here and it says the grade is F, and we can see that printed out right down here. So that's the difference between a value returning method and a void method. Now, the question is, which one's better? And that just depends on what you're doing. Generally, we don't like to write methods that do input and output for the user. So printing things out isn't good, because what if I wanted to use this same method in a GUI application? In a GUI application, we wouldn't be printing to the console. We'd be putting it in some kind of form that the user can click on in some kind of field in a form. So we wouldn't want it to print to the console because the user would never see it if we just print it to the console. That makes value returning methods much more versatile because I can use this method in any application that I want. And it will always return an answer for me based on the score that I pass into it. It doesn't matter if I'm doing a console application like I'm doing here, or if this was some kind of GUI application that called getGrade. We would let the application determine how that information gets transmitted out to the user. If it wants to print it, we can print it. If we want to update some kind of GUI form, we can update some kind of GUI form.